Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you all here. We see you loading into the room, so we'll give a little bit of time for everybody to load in. Today is Valentine's Day, so we're sending you all the love from the KDA Creative Core. If you are viewing this on demand later, today is Valentine's Day, and we hope you are continuing to feel the love at a later date. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Andrea Hansen, and I am the KDA Creative Core Program Director. We're so happy you are all here. We'll take a few more moments for everybody to load in. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and share my screen just so you kind of have an idea of what's to come. Perfect. As you continue to come into the room, I just want to acknowledge that today's presentation is being recorded so that you can access the webinar at a later date. And for those of you that have been sending emails about the release of webinar number 2, that is coming today. So hang tight, we'll make that announcement when it is available. Also, we will have our ASL services available to anybody that needs the extra accommodations. We have our friend Stephanie in the room who's going to be assisting us. So feel free to turn on those ASL accommodations should you need them. We will be taking your questions, so please load them into the chat. For those of you that have been here with us previously, my colleague Whitney Pasquale was moderating the chat. She's not able to be here with us today, but that's okay. Yours truly will be moderating the chat. So load those questions in as our presenters are giving you key information about branding and strategy. I will be looping those into different groups and then sending them on over to our panelists to answer for you. So please load your Q&As into the chat. I will be here to help moderate them for you later. So here's a little bit of the agenda for today. It is our 3rd webinar. We are halfway through. We're going to start with an introduction to integrated marketing communications, and that's going to come from our PR team, our marketing and PR team, Justin Salters and Joel Paramo, who are on behalf of Hey Salty, a marketing communications company here in Bakersfield. We're going to have a little short break in between, and then we'll send it on over to Nancy Lynn Miller, who is the KDA Creative Core Creator Director. And she's going to talk to you about developing a strong brand, clarity, authenticity, and longevity. And why is this information important to you creating your grant proposals? Well, the community engagement piece is really important about how you're going to be writing and telling us about how you're going to be engaging your community. And engaging your community entails your marketing and communications plans. So our team is here to help you learn more about the tools that are available to you to create an authentic brand and to deliver your message to your communities in the strongest way possible. So with that said, I will stop sharing my screen. Again, just a reminder, Stephanie is in the room if you need ASL accommodations. Please load your questions into the chat. We will be taking all of those questions towards the end of today's webinar. And without further ado, I'm going to send it on over to our marketing and communications team, Joel and Justin. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Andrea. It's nice to see your names in the attendees list, everybody. My name is Justin Salters. I'm the founder and president of Hey Salty. We are an integrated marketing and communications agency. We work with businesses, nonprofits, and public agencies of all shapes and sizes to really help them reach their audiences. Our mission, we say, is to create communications that build trust and generate value. Whether that value is revenue, reputation, or creating social impact, like the work that you all and your proposals are attempting to do, that is ultimately what we are here for. I'm going to pause for a minute and hand it over and allow my one of my employees and team members, Joel Paramo, to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Paramo. Excited to be here today and give you a little introduction to integrated communications that involves a lot of different things that we'll go over here in the next hour or so.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give a little high-level intro and then allow Joel to go ahead and take you through the rest of this. But when we talk about integrated communications, we really want to help paint this picture of how you bring every different channel together. Really, our industry, public relations, marketing, has seen tremendous evolution. We used to go from a handful of media, a handful of channels who we knew the contacts for, to now everybody's a content creator. Everybody who has a smartphone or any device is able to go ahead and claim an audience and put information out there to the public. So this idea of integrated communications means thinking about holistically every different type of channel, every different type of media, and how do we build plans and build programs that reach our audience, that move us towards our goals and objectives while hitting all across all of them. Because it's really through this integrated approach that we're able to go ahead and increase impact. You'll all get the slides and be able to read this lovely paragraph that Joel put on here for me as well. So next slide, if you will. Joel, so why is integrated marketing and communications important? And Joel, I'll let you go ahead and take it from here.
All right, everyone. So the importance of marketing for your organization is that it makes the consumer aware of your products or services. For you guys, your art or whatever project you're working on, it engages them and helps them make the decision to engage with your brand. Marketing, as it was originally intended in its fullest, truest, and greatest form, is more important today more than ever. The world is full of innovative items, products, services, technology, solutions, and it's really hard to communicate the messages of those brands, but we have to bring them to market, right? Marketing is about connecting the right customers to the right products. Marketing helps sales teams and people throughout the organization or your organization think from the outside in about what is being offered, convey its value in customer-centric ways, and persist through barriers that can only be addressed through deep customer knowledge and insights. So let's go over some reasons why integrated marketing communications is so very important. First, it creates credibility. So to create a level of transparency for brands, public relations can address customer demand for more accessibility, openness, and flexibility, helping to gain trust with its audience or with your audience. Integrated communication consistently encourages influencers and organizations to get involved in the community and act on its authentic views and opinions. The key here is authenticity, boosting credibility and exposure within the community even more. Integrated marketing communications also increases your return on investment. ROI is a very important thing. If you're putting work in, you want to see some sort of return on that investment. An influencer like yourselves or an organization that utilizes different methods of integrated marketing communication practices to enhance its reputation makes it likely that new customers or a new audience appears. Potentially, customers and clients will be exposed to the organization in more ways, which will encourage them to connect with the company. People like to talk. People especially like to talk about themselves. So whenever you can talk about your target audience or your stakeholders and make it about them instead of you, that is the key. When new customers and clients or new audience shows up, their friends and family show up too. So it's very important to make sure that you draw people in authentically. Here's a fun fact. According to a research study done by Nielsen, in 2021, 92% of customers say they trust earned media, such as word of mouth recommendations, above all other forms of advertising. Marketing communication boosts your visibility. So this means any integrated marketing communications content you create can provide more value as it lives on. By sharing timely and relevant stories across channels, you or your organization will stay higher up in search engine rankings, boosting your visibility for your brand. And here's what's really important. If you're developing a brand, you want it You want to create those long-lasting relationships, right? So great public relations helps a company find the best way to provide for and interact with your target audience. And I know I keep saying that, and we'll get into target audience a little bit more here in a second. This in turn encourages customers or your stakeholders, your target audience, to take action or want to be a part of what you're doing, allowing you, the influencer, to get more personal with your long-term customers or audience and build quality relationships that last. So I've mentioned it quite a few times already, and this is very important while building your brand or building your identity. What is your target audience, and like, how do you figure out who that is if you don't know who it is already? Well, depending upon what you do, there's a lot of different kinds of art forms out there. Your target audience might be very niche or very broad. I'm a runner, so I'm going to use a running example. If you were at a shoe store, or if you owned a shoe store, your target audience would be broad, since men, women, and children all wear shoes. However, on the other hand, perhaps you specifically sell high performance running shoes. Then your target audience would be more niche, elite athletes between the ages of 20 to 40 who have expressed an interest in running or have run a marathon. Either way, it is important to define and segment your audience in order to determine the creative messaging that will resonate with them and pinpoint the channels they prefer. So we're going to be on this slide for a second. I'm going to give you some tips on how to determine who your target audience is. So the first thing that you can do is research and identify trends. Look at the market research for your specific industry to determine where there are holes in services that your product can fill, or whatever you're offering can fill. Look at trends for similar products to see where they are focusing efforts, then hone in further on your products or your unique offering, or wherever you bring value. Number two, you can analyze your competitors. Marketers can learn a lot by looking at competition to see who they are commonly selling to and how they go about doing that. Are they using online or offline channels? Are they focusing on the decision maker or the supporter? Those are all very important things to take into account. Number three, which is a very fun process, but create personas. Creating personas is a great way to drill down into the specific segments that make up your target audience. This is especially helpful if you have a product that appeals to a wide swath of consumers. Personas allow you to determine the general demographics, personalities, and needs of your customers. And we do this for all of our clients. We like to pick out at least three. So like, let's take that running example that I mentioned earlier. Let's say we have the more general target, the persona. We'll call her like a first-time runner. We'll call her Fran, the first-time runner. So we give her a name and we say that's our very general audience. And if we target that person, we'll speak to different needs than the seasoned pro, and we will call that seasoned pro Sam. So now we have two target audiences. We have a first-time runner. We have Sam, the seasoned pro, who is probably going to be the marathon runner. Personas are created based on data, surveys, digital engagements, and any other information we can pull from to give a more complete view of the buyer. This might include favorite hobbies, television shows, publications. So there's a lot of things that can play into this. But again, I recommend at least doing 2 to 3 for each project.
Joel, can I go ahead? I want to just interject right here that as you're thinking about your target audiences, you should be considering, who does your project serve? So especially looking around the 4 goals that the Creative Core program has, if your goal is, if you're focusing on the voter registration, community engagement piece, you really are able to understand, you want to find adults who are older than 18 years old who are not registered to vote yet? What do those demographics look like in this community? So as you're thinking about that audience, that's very important. And you should be able to both think about who are the artists or who are the people who are participating in your project, but also who is your project going to be serving?
All right. Now let's jump to number 4. Define who your target audience is not. So there will certainly be customers, consumers who are close to your target demographic, but who will not act on any of your messaging. So try to be specific in determining how your audience is and who your audience is and who it isn't. Is your demographic women or women between the ages of 20 and 40? That could really change the results on your target. Number 5, continuously revise. As you gather more data and interact with customers, you will get an increasingly accurate understanding of your target audience. Based on this information, you must constantly optimize and hone personas to achieve the best results. And finally, use Google Analytics or analytics in general. They offer extensive data about the users visiting your site or your social media. And this information can be leveraged to determine key insights, such as what channels your target audience is coming from, or what type of content they're engaging and connecting with the most. All right. I think I've been on the screen so long, it's not switching. All right, there we go. So now what? Now that you've you know kind of what integrated marketing communication is and why it's important and how to determine your target audience, or kind of how to determine your target audience, now it's time to show you how integrated marketing communication works in a holistic model. So with that, I introduced to you the PESO model. This is a commonly used model by most marketers, but it integrates the 4 types of media: paid, earned, shared, and own, and then it merges them together, because you can't have any of, well, you can, but it wouldn't be successful. So that's why we have this model. You have to combine them together. So when you integrate the 4 types of media, or the 4 media types, you may find you also have things like influencer engagement, partnerships, incentive programs that extend beyond what you originally thought. When the PESO model is working at its best, it can help you establish authority. Authority leads to thought leadership, and thought leadership leads to credibility and expertise. The PESO model helps you craft a strategic framework that makes sense for your organizational goals, and it can help you decide which media types are most important, like how you'll plan, how you'll execute, and most importantly, how you measure your results. So let's talk a little bit more about each one of these different media types. Paid media is becoming ever more important. It's becoming more important than ever because of the algorithms in social media. And for most of us in this audience right now, we are probably building a brand. We don't have a big following. Algorithms aren't going to put you to the top. So a little paid boost isn't going to hurt. It's common to promote your media in the marketing world, and the same goes for PR. So paid media is when you pay to make your content more visible. Like it says here, think about meta ads or Facebook ads. This includes social media marketing, and even if you have a well-developed brand and a website already, you probably might have thought about pay-per-click. And the plus to this format is that you're able to control the content, size, placement, and the reach of your media because you're paying for it, of course. But paid media is a fantastic way to make sure your content reaches the people you want to see it most. And we kind of did this with our audience for KDA. We built our audience around the KDA email list. So that's kind of how we promoted KDA Creative Corps, and we got you into this webinar.
Hey, Joel, question. If somebody is just, I'm going to ask a question here. If somebody's just getting started and doesn't have anything, any type of paid experience, what do we recommend our clients start out with from the paid media side of things?
So for beginners, I would start by promoting a post. Start in Instagram. Instagram is a fantastic place to start. You can put $2 to $3 behind a post and you will see your engagement and likes increase by at least 15 to 30%, depending on who you target. And through Meta, when you get into the targeting section, you'll see like you can target by arts, you can target by like fitness. It even gets so detailed, you can target people who are interested in baby diapers. Like it's kind of crazy, but it just takes a little bit of time to get in there and mess with it and decide what your target audience is. So that's why it's so important to understand who you're targeting or who you want to target or message to. Thank you, Justin. Great question. All right, let's jump to earned. This is my favorite because this is where I kind of started my career. Earned media is an incredible way to increase conversation about your brand. It's essentially people using word of mouth to talk about your brand, and it's great. It's a great organic way to build your reputation. This type of communications or public relations is a little more difficult to obtain, but after a lot of work and consistency, it's much more worth it in the long run. Examples of this includes earned media like news coverage, press mentions, website reviews, influencer shoutouts. And mind you, when I say influencer shoutouts, that's unpaid. So it's not an influencer partnership. It's an influencer shoutout. So I want to be clear about that. And then all three of those types of media are great ways to earn publicity and attract the attention of new customers or clients. Let's talk about shared. Shared media encompasses any and all content posted to social media regarding your brand. Shared media includes posts to platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. These posts could come from brands, media outlets, and individuals. And again, understanding your target audience will also inform what platforms are most important for you to be on. You're going to see different audiences on different platforms, so knowing who your target audience is will help you hone your efforts in posting to certain social media sites. Let's talk about owned. So owned media consists of any kind of media that is owned and operated by you. The main benefit of owned media is that you are in control of the content and know what is being released to the public. Due to you owning this media, there is a chance of it not being trusted. So you only post what you want, or because you only post what you want others to see. So it may be viewed as bias. That's why public relations is so important. Because you have other people talking about you. The key to using own media is to use it to build the trust of your audience. If your media posts can encourage people to support your campaign or cause, you have added an aspect of earned media, which boosts your credibility. And then down below here, WordPress is a website builder, Squarespace. And then we have these creative platforms that we use to create original content here as well. But those that I just showed you on the other page were paid. Actually, no, I did not. So that kind of gets us through all 4 of the peso media types, right? But a lot of those tools that I showed you are paid. So you have to pay to play. Here are some free content creation tools. This that I do not have experience in. But these 3 free design tools, Canva, Snappa, and Stencil, are all great depending on what your needs are, because a lot of their capabilities are free for commercial use. Canva is a perennial favorite. For me, I've never used it, but it's especially great for beginners. I have a lot of friends who use it, and it has a large variety of templates. So if you're looking to start building your brand and you're not sure where to start, one of these tools is a great resource. And I do recommend you guys check it out if you're struggling, because they're very helpful and we should be using technology to improve our messaging. All right, so time to report. Reporting is super important, and it's really, really very important to track everything that you're doing. And most of the platforms that we already utilize, like Facebook or Instagram, or websites, they all have built-in analytic reporting. It's sometimes hard to read, but it's free. So I encourage you all to utilize the reporting analytics tools in each of these platforms. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So the data analysis process is a collection of steps required to make sense of the available data. Identifying the critical stages in a data analysis process is a no-brainer. Each step is equally important, though, to ensure that the data is analyzed correctly and provides valuable and actionable information. So let's take a look at this a little bit closer. I'm going to try to give you an example here. Define what you need to track. So if we are trying to build a brand, for KDA specifically, we like to track engagement or the times it was shared or liked. So figuring out exactly what you want to track and define as success is what you would do here on number one. Number two, begin collecting data from sources. This will take place over time. So say you want to track your social media following for a month and then figure out month over month for the next 3 months, what's working, what's not working. You're going to collect data for that 3 months. Number three, you're going to clean through any unnecessary data. Data cleanliness is very important. Figuring out what your key performance indicators are is going to be very helpful, like only tracking engagement, like likes or shares, and then whatever else you want to track. Number four, after that 3 months is up, you're going to analyze your data, and then you'll probably see ups and downs here and there, but you'll start seeing patterns in certain types of posts. Say you have a post of a person in it, and then you have a post of a quote. You'll probably see more engagement with post with people in it than you will with a post with just words or a quote. So you'll probably decide that you want to start posting more photos or doing more posts with people in them. So that's kind of how that whole data analytics can be useful to you. All right, that's all I have for you right now. We are going to hand it over to Nancy, who's going to dive a little bit deeper into branding, and then we can take questions from there. I'm sure you guys all have a lot of questions.
Thank you, Joel and Justin. Yes, I'm Nancy. I am the KDA Creative Core Creative Director. And let me get my screen going. And we are going to be talking about developing a strong brand. Let me How does one develop a strong brand? Well, I think some key goals when creating a brand is to have clarity of vision, to have an identity that is authentic to your brand personality, and have a fair amount of longevity or be somewhat lasting for years down the road. And there's a number of ways to ensure that. Before I begin any project with a client, I send them a questionnaire called a creative brief. The questions I pose in the brief help the client to clarify their intent for their brand, which in turn helps me be very intentional with their initial design concepts. I'm going to go over the questions in a typical design brief, and I've tailored these slightly to the KDA Creative Core audience. And I will make this outline available to download so you can copy and paste into a word processing document and work on it for your own, yourself. About you and your organization. What kind of service, product, art firm do you offer? How long have you been offering this in your community? State a single-minded word or phrase that will appropriately describe your service, project, or art form. This is important. This question requires you to really focus, go deep, strip away all the superfluous information out there, and compose as succinctly as possible this single-minded word or phrase that tells me what you're about. About your market. Who are your competitors or colleagues? What do you think about their branding? What sets you apart from your competitors and colleagues? Describe your target market. Who is your ideal participant? Do some research. Get some inspiration. How are these brands connecting with their demographic well? What are some ways they could improve? How can you learn from this, comparing and contrasting, and apply it to your unique brand? About your brand. I like to be aware of all the ways a client plans to use their logo. Embroidered on apparel, wrapped on sides of trucks, built as signage on a building. It's important to understand how large and how small the logo may appear. But a good, strong logo will perform well in any of these situations. Do you have specific design elements that you would like to see incorporated? Color, style, different imagery. Be prepared to explain the meaning behind these and how they relate to your service, product, art form, or project. Do you have a tagline or slogan? Do you want it incorporated into the logo itself? It's good to know up front whether or not you'll need multiple versions or alternate submarks of your logo to be designed within your brand suite. What are your core brand values? List 3 to 5 brand values. Examples of these are teamwork, compassion, creativity, collaboration. I highly recommend you Google brand value examples marketing to explore lists that others have put together to get ideas, and it'll help identify what your specific core brand values are, and it should relate back to the single-minded word or phrase. What personality attributes should your logo or brand communicate? And the possibilities here are endless. These can be of varying degrees between each of these ratios. And it's just up to you to research and soul search and pinpoint. Authenticity. We're going to be looking at a brand, specifically KDA Creative Core. We always wanted the KDA Creative Core brand to be sort of a sister brand to Kern Dance Alliance, not reinventing the wheel, but still giving it its own identity so that it wasn't so dance-centric, but representative of all art forms. So we borrowed some colors and graphical elements from KDA to drive the design process. And in no way am I trying to pat myself on the back here, or am I saying that this is the most brilliant brand ever created. I just want to use it as an example of the design process because it was created pretty recently. The details are still fresh in my brain, and you've likely had some interaction with the brand if you're participating in these webinars or following us on social media. Also, if you are funded, you will be asked to apply the California Arts Council and KDA Creative Core logos for recognition purposes. So you may as well become somewhat familiar with it. In the beginning, these are the initial rough logo concepts I sent to Andrea to see which fonts and layouts appealed to her. The next step was to mix and match the things she liked, with the end goal being a refined and developed truly custom logo design. And you'll see here, we skipped ahead a few steps. This is the logo we settled on after some back and forth concepts. We have two versions we can use in different instances. Landscape works well on the head of our website. The badge one works nicely in a circular profile pic, or anytime we want it to appear more self-contained. And I'll talk a little bit about the meaning behind some of the elements here. So the abstract rainbow in the logo is made from our signature KDA circle shape. We use this thick, thin circle as a design element in many of our programs for KDA. And if we break it in half, scale and rotate it, it represents the two C's in Creative Core. Rainbows in general symbolize a positive outlook, good fortune, hope, nature's magic, and invokes a carpe diem attitude derived from its ultimate impermanence. And we thought that was very fitting. This is a direct quote from Andrea, directly from the KDA Creative Core creative brief that I plucked. I am mostly inspired by a variety of shapes and colors that can be used to represent all forms of music to dance, from music to dance, theater to poetry, filmmaking to indigenous arts, and beyond. I actually focused on what our branded graphics would look like as much as the logo itself. I spent weeks creating art messes and refining most of our graphics from scratch, and also considering how the logo would play with our accompanying graphics. What kind of energy they all needed to have in order to engage our existing KDA audience, as well as how to expand that energy and reach to the community well suited for KDA Creative Core and its ventures. I didn't want to be too literal with the shapes, but more abstract and using layering techniques to create endless combinations. Okay, so that started shaping into this. Handmade watercolor shapes on paper. The watercolor textures infer handmade, artisan, artistic craft worker. They're friendly, warm, welcoming, but also interesting, unique, and they have an inherent sense of movement and energy to them. So I went from this to this. I digitized those shapes so that they're vector and could be scaled and resized. I added some thick, thin, cleaner shapes, all in the same style as the KDA circle, which coordinates with our logo. These are minimalist design elements that were meant to complement and kind of tone down the busyness of the watercolor textures. They also have their own sense of flowing movement and energy. We made solid shapes out of those same organic shapes, which internally we affectionately refer to as blobby type shapes or blobs. They're versatile and scalable, easy to layer with other elements. We also nailed down our color palette using our existing KDA jewel colors, which is these mid colors here. Those are original KDA palette. And then also incorporating our Books in Motion, one of our programs, we made pastel versions of those same jewel tones, and then adding some deeper muted versions to create some drama. And we're working within these monochromatic hues, and they actually coordinate nicely with the watercolors as they both have that natural light dark nature to them. The title text we're using is Dido. That's an original KDA font. It's classic, established, somewhat serious with a bit more style than New Times Roman. The other logo type we're using is Jules Regular. That's applied to Creative Core. It's a handwritten script that's been very customized for our use. It's casual but legible, warm and inviting, but with a sense of confidence, creativity, and clarity of vision. The body text is Helvetica New, and this is what we use for KDA currently, and it just works. It's just simple, and there are so many different variations to it, and we use every possible iteration as needed. So here are the logos again. I wanted to emphasize that we have one in black, one in white, and then we have one of each of our monochromatic colorings. And then all of this has developed into this. You see the fonts used consistently. You see the layering effect to create kind of an energetic feel. And I also like the idea of carrying over that monochromatic theme into the just not besides the logos in places where the colors might fight with the images. I wanted the artwork to complement the images that we're using. And monochromatic just means that it's basically one color or hue having different variations of that. Longevity, making smart choices at the start. Now, this is more specifically referring to your logo design. Longevity is a long life or how long something will last. And there's no hard or fast rule about how long a logo should last, but in my mind, a nicely designed logo, professional looking logo should last at least 10 years, if not more. And if you're investing in this custom product, you want it to last long enough to gain recognition and establish trust. Here's some logo design tips for longevity. Customize fonts. Manipulating the fonts is one way to create unique logo types that are custom to your brand and your logo. This can be a slight alteration or it can be an extreme type treatment. Think timeless versus trendy. I remember in art school when gradients were a big trend in design, but my instructors implored us, do not use gradients in logos. If you do, make sure you have a solid one color design as well, because gradients can sometimes be challenging to scale or resize. And they're especially challenging to use for screen printing on apparel. Ultimately, it can be done, and some brands use gradients well, but that's the point, is that you want it to be applied well. Try to resist fast fading trends that will make your logo dated sooner than you wish. Keep it simple yet strong. Create vector files. Vector images are made up of lines and shapes that are mathematically defined using points and lines. This means that they can be scaled up or down without losing any quality. The edges are always sharp and clean, no matter how large it's needed. The most common vector file types are AI, or Adobe Illustrator, EPS, and PDF. A huge caveat with this is that your artwork needs to begin as vector. You can't just turn a rasterized JPEG into a vector file. So design it using software that generates a vector image from the get-go, or have it designed by a professional. You will always export the vector artwork into shareable files for use on web and print like PNG, but again, PNGs will look best if starting from vector. And I'll get into the brand style guide in a little bit. I found this very succinct article on entrepreneur.com that nicely outlines the 5 cardinal rules of logo design. And this article happens to be from 2005, but for me, the tips still hold true today. Your logo should reflect your company in a unique and honest way. And here we go again with the clarity and authenticity. What's the overriding trait you want people to remember about your business? Be careful, be clever if you can, but not at the expense of being clear. Avoid too much detail. Simple logos are recognized faster than complex ones. Clean, simple logos reduce and enlarge much better than complicated ones. Your logo should work well in black or white, one color. If it doesn't look strong in one color, in black or white, it won't look strong in any color or any color combination. Also keep in mind that some printing costs, like screen printing, for 4-color logos are often greater than that for 1 or 2-color jobs. Make sure your logo is scalable. This goes back to the vector conversation. It should be aesthetically pleasing in both small and large sizes in a variety of mediums. A good rule of thumb is the business card billboard rule. Your logo should look good on both. Your logo should be artistically balanced. The best way to explain this is that your logo should seem balanced to the eye. No one part should overpower the rest. Just as a painting would look odd if all the color and details were segregated in one corner, so do asymmetric logos. Color, line, density, and shape all affect a logo's balance. Brand style guide. This is an important step in protecting your brand, ensuring consistency and safeguarding your brand's impact in the market and not letting it get watered down by improper usage. You want to establish a clear brand style guide that not only explains how your brand should be presented in all situations, but also how it should not appear. And this just brings everything together and serves as a handbook for your brand and its elements. This should cover the logo usage, secondary marks and symbols, color palette and its own hierarchy, primary versus secondary versus accent, how the supporting graphical elements should be used and what not to do. This is an indispensable resource for yourself or anyone acting on behalf of your brand. And I will mention that I am diligently working on the full version of our KDA brand style guide. This is our brand intro page. And I am now building on this to flesh out the most useful guidance for our team and brand. In conclusion, the more cohesive your brand experience is, the more powerful and valuable your brand will become, and you will be better able to connect with those it is meant to serve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy, Justin, and Joel. Fantastic information. I know I always learn a lot from members of our team, so your efforts are very much appreciated. This is the time where we want to start opening it up to questions. Anything that you have when it comes to marketing or branding, style guides, paid advertising, maybe questions that are more specific to your actual LOI, preparing your letter of intent, or your grant applications when it comes to engaging your community and the different tools that our team has presented to you that you might incorporate into your grant writing. So feel free to kind of let those questions pull on into the chat. Yes, Lauren, please, you can load them into the chat. I am here to moderate them with you. Maybe you already have an established brand within your organization, or maybe you're an individual artist just getting started on this for the very first time. What kind of questions do you have when it comes to the identity of your project from a visual perspective? How do you get started? Where do you even find the people? Maybe those are some questions, that can help you get started. Maybe I can just start moderating some questions if that's okay while people are maybe thinking. I'll send it over to Justin. Justin, if I'm an individual artist and I'm just getting started on this process, where do I find the people in my community to help me with my marketing and brand?
Yes, I'll unmute myself. Okay. So I think the place to begin as an individual artist is it's always yourself is really what I would say the first place to think about. And you have to think about, okay, how can I go ahead and build my audience? How can I go ahead and engage with people? So looking around with if the goal is to expand your platform or expand your network, it is to me, some early things that come to my mind are different arts organizations that you can partner with. How can you network with other organizations that are doing this? Making sure that you've got a good website. Building Squarespace is, I think, another tool. It's not free, but from a content management system, it's easy to design a beautiful, visually appealing website using Squarespace for artists to showcase your work, to showcase ways people can connect with you. And then I think the other most important thing when you're getting going is to really focus on building your email list. and using a free tool like MailChimp or Campaign Monitor, which is one we recommend and we use for a lot of our clients. But these tools that have free versions, but then also scale to paid versions as you grow. Begin by building up your contact list, communicating with them regularly, sharing the work that you're doing. That's, I think, kind of the place to start. And then, if you have a gallery showing or something planned for your work or an installation, look at ways to go ahead and attract the media to it, the earned coverage. Say that you're doing a unique interactive art or experiential art exhibit. That's something the media would want to cover. You can't say that they're not just going to cover it because you're doing it, but they'll cover the impact that you're making. So, be thinking about that, but that's, I will pause there and ask Joel if he has anything that he would add or additional recommendations there.
I do not. I think you covered it very well, Jess.
Thank you, Justin. Another question we have is, if we don't have an established brand, how important is it to have a brand before you begin working on a project? I'll send this over to Nancy, and if I can just interject really quick. On the KDA side, we have specific branding for every single project we execute within the year. But Nancy, to you, if we don't have an established brand, how important is it to have a brand before you begin working on a project?
Am I unmuted? I think it's just as important for you as it is for your audience. If you could just take it as far as you can go, just be clear about what kind of persona you want to put out there. It really helps you, the artist or the project manager, understand where your content and where your brand personality is coming from, so that it is clear and it feels comfy.
Yeah, can I jump
for
in?
the audience? Yes, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, I was going to add, Nancy, just being authentic to who you are, because if you're an individual artist, just being true and authentic is going to be your brand. So you yourself are a brand already. It's just making sure that it's consistent and that it's very clear about what you're doing and how what messages that you're sending out into the world. So be authentic. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Thank you, panelists. We have another question here. If we already have a brand or logo for the work we've been doing, does it need to be changed for the grant period?
Andrea, I would say that's as much a you question. So I'm gonna offer my opinion, and then our program director may say, actually, Justin, you're completely wrong, full of shit. But my recommendation is that the idea for the KDA Creative Core is to be funding a specific project. So ideally, you would have a project name for this, whether it is, with Kern Dance Alliance, the Books in Motion program. Let's use that since KDA is, that way I'm not using one of your potential projects as an example. But so Books in Motion would be a program that we're there. However you choose to represent it, it could be a unique logo, it could be something, but your program that you're applying for the grant for should have a name. And if you have the resources to go ahead and develop a unique brand identity for that, that's fantastic. But also I think it's important for everyone to know that part of the success of these projects and impacting the community leverages the trust that your organizations or the trust that you as an artist already have with your stakeholders, with your community. So don't think that you need to develop something entirely brand new and entirely separate, because we want you to go ahead and leverage that existing trust and relationships to go ahead and create positive social impact. So, that's my idea, is that you need to have a name for your program, absolutely. But do you need to have something completely separate from your broader organization or artistic project? No.
Joel or Nancy, is Justin full of it, or do you concur?
I
No,
concur.
I concur as well.
Thank you. And along those lines, another question that's come in, we're wondering if we should have a separate website for our project versus a personal artist website. So should we still lean into maybe an existing website that we have, and should we become a grantee, should we create something new for this project, or should it also be available on an existing site that we already have?
My suggestion is I would recommend using your existing website and creating a separate page to go ahead and highlight this work. Again, I want to emphasize that part of this, the Creative Core, one of its goals is about lifting up the creative economy in the Central and Eastern California. And so we see this as something that can help you succeed, not just for the grant program period, but well beyond that. So I would recommend against a separate website for this, because we don't want you to invest this time and energy in it, and then when the grant program ends, to have it exist there and people not connect it directly to you. So that's why my recommendation for a page on your existing sites.
Anything that you'd like to offer, Nancy and Joel, on that note?
I think Justin is nailing it. I don't have anything to add.
And I just wanted to say, maybe some of you were wondering why KDA has a totally separate website from our organization website. Well, that was sort of what Nancy was noting earlier today, that because the Creative Core serves all art forms, and KDA is focused as a dance agency, we wanted to really make it clear to potential applicants and stakeholders and people involved in this process that the KDA Creative Core was a sister of the Kern Dance Alliance, but we wanted it to be clear that we're not just supporting dance through this project. All art forms are welcome. So we had to be really strategic about creating a brand new website and lessening the confusion of people looking at our brand and saying, well, they're a dance organization, why are they offering grants to other art forms? Well, we are, that is true. However, the Creative Core allowed us to branch out and to serve more art forms, essentially creating the KDA Creative Core. Another great question, how much does it cost to hire somebody to create a brand for you? We'll ask that question first. How much would it cost to potentially hire a creative director or a marketing and PR firm to, help with your communications? What could people maybe earmark in their budgets when it comes to those things? And then Lauren, I'll address the second part of your question in a moment.
I would say that if you are interested in our public relations services, we are available to go ahead and consult, and we do work with nonprofits, including like KDA, arts-based nonprofits. To reach out to Joel or myself directly, actually, you can reach out to me. And we can have a conversation about your goals and how we may be able to help you. But we build all of our programs, all of our client programs on a custom basis. So that's our approach to how we do this work, so we're happy to have that conversation, but we don't discuss or disclose our pricing publicly, such like this.
Nancy, are you also in the camp of not disclosing your pricing, or would you want to add a little bit more?
Well, I would absolutely agree that it is a customized service, and I wouldn't really be able to rattle off any numbers. I would need to have a conversation with you about what you are needing specifically?
I do want to say, Andrea, to add to that, though, that part of to help people understand, part of the KDA Creative Corps communications plan is that when the grantees are selected and they begin their implementation, so beginning in May of this year, part of our effort is to use, going to the PESO model, we have an integrated comms plan for KDACC. And one of our efforts is to go ahead and create owned content, so articles, videos for our website, highlighting the programs and artists that have been funded by KDA Creative Corps. So we will be reaching out to you to create own content and working with you along those lines there. And if there are major initiatives or things that we want to go ahead and promote as KDA Creative Corps working with you, that there may be opportunities for us to work on a media advisory or press release with you if you are selected for that. So that being that, I'll put that out there as something that we are, to be clear though, we are not here, part of our consulting for KDA Creative Corps is we are not your public relations agency. We are KDA Creative Corps' public relations and marketing agency. And so to the extent that it helps us meet our communication goals and objectives, raising awareness across the entire region of what KDACC is doing, we will be helping to promote the programs of the awarded artists and organizations. So we will do something with everybody who wins, but we are not going to do everything that your program necessarily needs.
Thank you, Justin. We've got a great PR and marketing team. I figure if they can run political campaigns, they can definitely manage the KDA Creative Corps. So with that said, I wanted to, Lauren, come on back to your the second part of your question. You wanted to know a little bit about the 20-80 split and how marketing and PR could potentially load into either the 80% or the 20% of your budget. So the 80% goes to specifically pay artists. Again, the KDA Creative Corps is a jobs creator for artists. You want to imagine, you want to think that 80% is essentially paying the salary of an artist for an entire year of work. Now that 20% can be used for administrative costs, program supplies, any other expenses that you might incur when it comes to program design and implementation. So I'm not going to tell you whether your graphic artist is going to lump into the 80% to pay the artist, or if they're going to lump into your 20% to pay your administrative costs. They can almost load into either or. So I think maybe I'll have to put it back into your camp. Which artists are you thinking you're going to be working with? Are you working with a symphony to create a score to enhance your program focus area? Well, I would think that 80% is probably going to pay your musicians. However, when it comes to your marketing expenses of promoting your project, that's going to load into that 20% under your admin category. Those are the people that you're going to be paying to help your program be executed beyond the actual artistic realm of the salary going to artists. But again, it's up to you on how you kind of shake out that budget. Again, 80% has to go towards paying an artist or artists for an entire year of salary. That 20% can be used on all different types of fees when it comes to program design and implementation. So I hope that helps you out, Lauren. We have another question that's come in to the team. How should we go about figuring out our PR marketing budget with regard to the grant application? So I know when it comes to actually hiring a PR team, communications team, a graphic designer, that's a different set of a customized cost. But if I'm thinking about my advertising costs, flyers, purchasing, advertising on social media, what's a general good rule of thumb when I'm thinking about loading my budget?
So I'm going to go off of like when we're working with B2B clients, typically, so business to business clients, typically, we're looking for 10% of their top line revenue goals to be invested in promotion in the marketing of it. So yeah, I think that, but it also depends on time as well. So if you're promoting an event that's a one-time, big event to get communities to, if you're able to go ahead and spend $1,000 promoting it, that might be completely fine for you. But I think that It's about figuring out the categories that you need to pay, like Andrea said, if you need to do flyers. So, if you're working, a lot of the communities that are on the bottom quartiles of the HPI, may not necessarily be people getting all of their information from their smartphones. You might need to think of tactics other than social media to go ahead and engage them, or other than email. So thinking through those things, but I think, the other component to consider is your organizations should, I hope, and artists, individual artists, so I'm speaking to both of you, but you already should hopefully have some part of your business operations dedicated to marketing and promoting the work that you're doing. And so when you're thinking about it, to be thinking about incrementally, how can you use those resources, and really pulling it out of the 20% of overhead that's allowed in the grant is key. And obviously, you may not necessarily be able to spend 10% of that on promotion, because then you've spent half of your overhead, half of your allowable expenses there. So it's a delicate, and it really is project by project basis. Looking to leverage, what I would really emphasize is leverage the tools and the resources that you already have, leverage what you already own, your owned media that you have, and look for how you can do earned media as a big component of this.
Justin and Nancy, did you have anything you want to add? Go ahead.
I wanted to add one more thing, actually, Andrew, just as a tip to everybody, is one of the unique things about our region that we're doing, and the Cal Arts Council recognize this, is we're a region that severely lacks in terms of the creative economy vis-a-vis the rest of the state, and our grant application called that out as well. So these projects are actually going to be tremendously unique and tremendously newsworthy. So your local media should be very interested in covering the project that you're doing and the work that's taking place, because this is not something that happens every day in Central and Eastern California. So I think, and I think Joel would probably agree with me, that there's a very, very big opportunity for earned media coverage to go ahead and promote the work that's being done. So that should very much be an important part of your outreach plan.
Here's to the arts in the Central Valleys. I can't wait to see everything everybody is thinking about doing. A question about, a more general question about the grant in general. Are contracts for artists per event or art project the same as your salary for an artist for the year? I think I need a little more clarity on that, Jenny. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, yes, so the 80% is going to contract the artist or artists for an entire year of salary. Now, I understand there might be elements where your artists that you're working with might not be through the entire 1 year period. Maybe you're just contracting with an artist for maybe 4 or 5 months, and then they sort of shift the responsibilities onto another artist. I can understand where that that scenario might come in. So to answer your question, just keep it simple. 80% is to pay your artist, regardless of how long they are working. But remember these data points that we have to report on at the end during the final reporting period. How many artists were hired during the course of your projects? And the goal is to be able to show the state that we are hiring, that we are jobs creators. We are creating jobs for the artists through the California Creative Corps, specifically the KDA Creative Corps. I hope that helps a little bit, Jenny. Yes. So again, if you have multiple artists that you are working with, you can load them into that 80%. The amount of time that they are working, you just want to be really clear about that in your narrative. Artist A is working for 4 months, while artist B is working for the entire longevity of 1 year. Just being really clear in your narrative about the time that they're working. And then when you get into that budget component, you want to, really show that this individual is earning this much versus this individual that's earning this month, based upon how much they're working and the time that the hourly rate or the rate that you're paying them. Let's see. I hope that helps, Jenny. Great. Are we allowed a salary as the head of the project? Okay, so general rule of thumb. when it comes to grant marketing, about 20% of your project should be spent on your admin costs. That's kind of where I come to from the table as a grant writer, especially when it comes to your projects. You should be paying people for their time, period. Artists should be being paid for their time. Again, this is a jobs creator for artists. Maybe this grant isn't able to pay the full amount of every person that you're working with on your project, and maybe you're finding funding in other places to sort of pad what you're paying the individuals involved. But yes, please be really clear about who's being paid and how much they're being paid, whether they're coming from an administrative perspective, a technical perspective, or an artistic perspective, and be really clear when it comes to that budget template. It will show you. Jump back to webinar number 2. It will be loaded later today. David, our IT director, walks you directly through the grant portal, and he shows you what the budget looks like and how to load it in. And Lauren, yeah, we can absolutely. So we can hold more finance questions when we get to the finance component, which is coming up in webinar number 4, I believe, is our finance, building our budget. We're going to be talking with our bookkeepers, our accountants, and our CPA, our bank. Oh, that's number 5. My apologies. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Friday is all about HR and legal practices. And then Tuesday of next week, we're going to talk more about the finances. But yes, I'm always here to answer any questions that you might have when it comes to all elements of the grant. Are there any more questions out there? Please load them in. Nancy and Justin and Joel, if you have any other words of wisdom that you want to share with people here today, or for those that might be accessing this on demand later, we welcome your thoughts.
I just always encourage every client. It's the way that we work. Always write with whatever you're developing, always write with your audience in mind. Always center your work, center your communications, your marketing, your public relations with the audience in mind. One of the biggest flaws I see is individuals and organizations that make everything about themselves. Look at what we're doing, this, and they don't really translate it to, well, why does anybody else care about that? And the difference I see in terms of successful earned media coverage, successful engagement on social media is when you tell a compelling story that intersects with the stories already happening in your audience's lives. And so that is the key to it. But the work is exciting. Joel and I are excited about working alongside the successful grant recipients to tell your stories via the KDA Creative Core platforms and our channels, and wish you all the best of luck as you go forward.
I just wanted to jump off what Justin said about, leveraging the experiences of the people living in your community. In the webinar on Friday, when I was talking about building your grant proposals, I was kind of offering some inspiration for you if you're still kind of trying to decide on a project, the program focus area. And I told you, just go watch your local news. Turn that on and see the stories that are truly impacting your communities. I know many of you out there are artists, you are exceptional creative thinkers, and I have no doubt that you are able to find the solution to many of the dismal stories impacting your community through arts initiatives. And that's what this is all about. Watch your news, find out what's happening, and then start to create a program that's going to provide solutions to some of those stories that are happening in real time. And when it comes to these, engaging stories that our PR team is going to be working with you to tell, you're going to be able to leverage, again, real life experiences of Californians living in our area and how you're using your projects to truly improve their quality of life. Nancy and Joel, did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to add? Just maybe anything that's percolated over the last couple of minutes?
I actually just noticed one of the questions was about, let me see if I can find it. It was, so did you say KDA is on everything and your own logo? And Andrea, I don't know if you want to explain that further.
Thank you. They were flying in so quickly. So I think if we understand the question correctly, when you go to build your personal branding for your project, if you're an awardee of the KDA Creative Core, yes, there are certain logos that you will have to use for your brand recognition. You will have to use the state logo, and you'll also have to use the KDA Creative Core logo in addition to whatever logo or branding you have. So anytime a flyer goes out, anytime you have some sort of advertisement go out, in the small little corner, you're going to have those logos just to give recognition of where the funding has come from. And of course, we provide examples of that on everything that we do. You're always going to see the logos on our work. Nancy, do you have anything you wanted to add to that, if I'm understanding the question correctly?
Yeah, I would just add, within reason, I can't think of any examples of when you wouldn't, or you would, like specific examples, but it's within reason, just to acknowledge KDA Creative Core and California Arts Council in your marketing materials.
Thank you, Nancy, for bringing that to my attention. And yes, everybody, just acknowledging that all of these webinars will continue to be available for you on demand all the way through the deadline of not only the LOI, which is this Friday. I know it's coming quickly. Please, please, please don't wait until 11:59 p.m. on February 16th, or sorry, February 17th to get your application in. Whitney acknowledged last week that sometimes it takes us about 24 to 48 hours to get through your LOIs, because we're really being thoughtful about what you're submitting to us. We want to make sure that by the time you guys get to the grant portal, you've had some feedback from us to help strengthen your applications. And if we have 90 come in the last few minutes, it's going to take us a lot of time to work our way through and give you some positive feedback before we give you the keys, essentially, to load into the grant portal. And yes, and on that note, the webinars will continue to be available to you all the way through the end of the grant deadline, which is March 31st. And then should you need to access them later, have at it. This is a service that we are providing to our community for free, because we truly believe in giving you every single tool to empower you to be successful through this process. We absolutely believe in you. And we've been really thoughtful about bringing in people that we believe are experts in their field. So please use them as much as you possibly can. Our consultants are incredible, and we're just so honored to be here to serve you and to be the stewards of this, truly monumental moment when it comes to arts funding in the Central Valleys. So with that said, unless anybody has any final questions, please ping me or email me if for any reason I did not get to your question. Our emails, of course, are on the. Yeah, go ahead.
I did see while we were wrapping up, Beverly and Natalie had some questions come through. So Beverly, if several artists are working on a project such as an art walk with murals, they don't get a year's worth of work, does the grant still apply to them? And should the 80% go collectively to all of them? Yes, that's correct. Whatever your 80% of your grant application is for, 80% of it has to go to the artist, realizing that yes, your project may not be executed over an entire year. And it can be spent on multiple artists, but 80% has to go towards creating employment opportunities for artists. Natalie's question about high res for the logo, yes, we'll provide that for everybody and be able to share a folder that you can all access to download.
Thank you. One more question has come in here for the team. Is there a percentage that you should keep promotion and marketing to as part of the grant? So we were kind of talking about that 10% rule, Justin, if you just want to reiterate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just in general, when we're looking at overall budgets for clients in this space, is we'd like to see at least 10% going towards marketing and promotion, but recognizing that for this grant, that you're only allowed 20% to go to all of your overhead and administration costs. So that necessarily is not necessarily the best number to use, but I think you need to come up with a list of starting with a plan in place versus firing from the hip in the middle of execution. What are the materials? What are the promotion? What's the marketing that you do need for this project to be successful, for it to reach the audience, for it to reach the communities it's meant to serve? And when you come up with that, then you can begin thinking about, okay, well, how much do we need to spend on social media advertising? How much do we need to spend on printing out flyers or collateral or invitations? So that's, part of it. And then realizing that generally your staff's time developing the social media, writing the press release, sending it out, that's going to be, you can go ahead and pay for your portion of your staff's time out of that 20% that goes to the overhead administration. So generally that's it, but there's no steadfast percentage that you must stick to for this.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm now noticing the Q&As and the chat. I apologize. Whitney's usually moderating this component for us, so I'm a little bit of a newbie. I'm learning all the ropes. Those of you that have been submitting your questions in the Q&A, we see them, and I've been noting them on our document. And I believe we have made our way through all of them, so thank you to all of you. And I believe we've made our way all the way through the chat as well. With that said, just a reminder, there are 3 more webinars left in this series. On Friday, we will be working with our HR and legal team. So for example, if you have questions about contracts, if you have questions about hiring artists, if you have questions about AB5, there's a lot of sort of state regulations and compliance that we all have to abide by. Should you be a grantee, the experts will be in the room. They will be lending their expertise to you. So please tune in there. In 1 week, next Tuesday, our finance team will be here. So our accountant, our bookkeeper, and our bank will all be here. They'll be talking about safe practices regarding financial institutions. You can ask all of your tax questions. For example, and I use this example a lot, if you're an individual artist and you receive a grant for $150,000, what does that mean to your taxes? You will be able to ask all of those specific questions to our experts. Our bookkeeper is going to be able to take you through the budget more finitely and talk to you more about the items that we can fund and the items that we cannot fund. So make sure that you cite that document on the website about the items that we do not fund. Get control of those now as you're starting to build your budgets. And then finally, we wrap up with the final webinar next Friday, which is an Ignite session. At that point, the LOIs have closed, but we want to lend you one more opportunity to just kind of get in with us and shoot us your ideas and allow us to respond because you'll likely be in the grant writing period at that point. Also, I want to acknowledge that we do have office hours open with myself and with David, our IT director. If you're having any technical issues getting into the LOI or into the grant portal, we are both, David is here to help field all of those technical questions, and I will be here to support any general inquiries you might have about the grant. So go on over to the contact page of the website where you can sign up for those office hours. And I'm seeing one more question just come in here. Is there a downside to the grant where 80% is going to 1 or 2 artists as opposed to more? I don't know that I can answer that in a yes or no way. It depends on how you want to shake out your budget. For example, if you are asking for if you're an individual artist asking for $150,000, then you can pay $120,000 to an artist or artists. Whereas the remainder of that is going to go to your admin costs or your program supplies or your program implementation. So I don't see a downside one way or another. It's just about making sure that you have persuasive writing to make your reviewer understand exactly how your project is working and the dollars attached to every single element of your project. And are there any specifics for the letter of recommendation and when is it submitted? The letter of recommendation is for the individual artist. You're going to want to ask a colleague, somebody that you have worked for, somebody that can speak to your level of experience as a working artist in the field. It's a 1-page letter essentially singing your praises. Find somebody that you trust, somebody that can write on behalf of their understanding of your work. You'll need one of those, and then that is submitted when you get into the grant portal. So when you create your profile in the grant portal, as an individual, you're going to have a personal profile where you load in all of your contact information, all your social media info, information about the programs and services and arts projects you've created in the past. And you'll also upload your letter of intent in that area in the grant portal. I hope that helps. Okay. Very good. I would like to thank Nancy and Justin and Joel for being with us today. I'll give them a round of applause. Also to Stephanie, our wonderful ASL friend who is here helping us with all of our accessibility needs. Thank you so much, Stephanie. We are very grateful for your time with us today. To everybody that tuned in, thank you. You know where to find us via email or in our office hours. We're so happy to walk alongside you throughout this process, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session on Friday. Bye, everybody.